Hello and welcome to Europe's Climate and Environment, a video podcast by the European Environment Agency, where we delve into the latest news and information and data on our climate and environment and on sustainability issues. My name is Concept Brand and welcome to today's show.
Electronic device you can buy online at a very low price, but if you want to get it repaired, then the costs are usually so high that people don't do it because it's not economic. For example, the eco-design rules, they should have an impact on making repair easier and design it in a way that you can shift the battery easily instead of like very costly type of repair which just is higher than the price for buying new. So I think these rules that we have here, they should help going in that direction.
So welcome to our show today. Joining us are Daniel Montalvo and Almut. Perhaps we can start with a brief introduction. Daniel.
Thank you, Constance. I'm Daniel Montalvo and I work here in the European Environment Agency coordinating the work on circular economy.
Almut?
Yeah, my name is Almut and I work on circular economy and on waste in Daniel's unit.
Great. So circular economy is a big part of Europe's Environment 2025 report. What do we actually mean in the European context by going circular? In other words, what does it mean to shift to circular economy? Almut, let's start.
Many people think that circular economy mainly is recycling of waste, but it is much more than that. It starts actually already when to think about, do I need this product? And then to extend the lifetime of the products we have in our economy, in our households, in everywhere. We can, for example, extend the lifetime by repairing them, by remanufacturing, by reusing. And all these concepts can be supported by good design. Design for recycling, design for repair, and so on. And also by business models that support this kind of approaches.
In other words, this is about systemic change of how we relate to the products and services we have in the economy. So if you are a company, you have to change the way you make money. But if you are a citizen, you have to also change the way you spend it.
So, Daniel, how did we get here? Why is the priority for Europe's carbon neutrality ambitions? What are they? And how does it align with current EU priorities, especially when it comes to boosting the economy and competitiveness?
Yeah, one can always wonder, why do we have environment and climate policy, right? And of course, in the last 200 years since industrialization, we've made a lot of progress as societies. We have access to healthcare. We have quite a lot of well-being. But we've done that at the expense of a strong reliance on resource use, which also comes with greenhouse gas emissions, with pollution, and so forth. And that's why environment and climate policy has been established to modulate this reliance with resources and what comes with it. The first part of decarbonization, which is your specific question, of course, has to do with the change in the energy carriers that we are using and moving away from fossil fuels. The second part will be tricky, will be difficult, because it will imply moving away from this strong reliance from resource use. This will be the most difficult part of moving away from greenhouse gas emissions. And circular economy is one of the many tools that we are going to employ as a society to transition to a different model that decarbonizes Europe and globally the world.
So, how big of a problem is it in Europe right now, the waste, the piling up of stuff, of
It is a big problem because I think society has been optimized at the cost of volumes that are being sold, business models that focus on that, on quantity rather than on quality. So we'll have to look into a model of growth that focuses on the quality of growth. And that's quite a change of mindset for Europe, but also for the world.
Almut, what does Europe's Environment 2025 report say about the progress we're making to more sustainable Europe?
Actually, we see a mixed picture. Let's start with the good news. Like when we look at the production and our industry in Europe, we can see that the amount of air pollutant emissions has gone down by 30% since 2012. So that's actually quite good. On the other hand, looking at the total amount of materials we use, it has been more or less stable. And also, if we look at the waste side, that has also been more or less stable. So we use a lot of materials, we produce a lot of waste, and the aim to reduce that has not been met yet. And also the levels of material use that we can see in Europe is much higher than in the rest of the world, and it is unsustainable.
Okay, but getting to a total circular economy, is that even realistic
Well,
in our world today?
That's, I think,
it's not just Europe we're talking about.
It's a very good
right?
question, right? And for those who are not working day to day on this matter, they may think that recycling 100% is the target.
Yeah.
It is not possible, technically. There will always be losses in the system. But it might not be also desirable, because if we don't address the totality of material use that we need to run our economy, a very high recycling rate will also come with a lot of energy use. And in the end, recycling is also an industrial activity that comes with environment degradation, right? It is, of course, a lot better than extracting new material. But I think a good circular economy is a circular economy with high circularity, but also lower material use. And I think that second part is maybe something that we have to explain more.
Mm-hmm. And what does Europe's environment say about lower material use and so forth?
Well, it says that the trends at the moment are not that good. We need to step up our efforts. On the other hand, there is a lot of new policies now in the EU that try to address this issue. Like we have a lot of new rules on eco-design, for example, to make products more repairable, longer lasting, and so on. And this is still quite new. We also have a lot of new requirements for dealing better with waste. And also, for the very first time, we have some targets, quantitative targets on reducing waste with a focus on food waste and on packaging waste. So there are some new developments in EU policies that drive in the right direction, but they need to be implemented in a good way and in an ambitious way.
Sure, and they would apply to all EU member states.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, single market.
Yes.
Yeah, and what about, people may ask or wonder, Europe can do all this good stuff, great, but what about all the stuff that's coming in from outside of Europe that produces waste? Like, for instance, packaging from something you buy online or so forth. I mean,
Yes.
this will be part of the rules too, I
Of
assume.
course, and it is.
Yeah.
It is. The Eco-Design for Sustainable Products regulation that Almut just mentioned, it's for anything that you place in the European single market. And there is a threshold of acceptability. There are things that you will not be able to place in Europe's markets because they are not sufficiently addressing environment concerns. And then there is the logic of stimulating that the better stuff is the one that is actually bought by the Europeans, wherever it's coming from.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then a lot of people will wonder, okay, what are the key obstacles to going circular? I mean, it's very abstract for a lot of people. Okay, they recycle, they try to reuse and so forth, but it's not just the citizens here. We're talking about industry. We're talking about other systems as well. What can you say? What the key obstacles?
Indeed. I think the key obstacles is, of course, the way our economy is working and that the linear model is still prevailing, and that's the normal thing. So we need to change behaviors, both with citizens and in industry. And also there is often still economic issues. For example, if recycled materials are more expensive than virgin materials, then, of course, virgin materials will be preferred by the economic operators. So in some cases, we need to protect the circularity aspects of the economy so that it can actually work.
And I think, just to complement first, to explain it in very basic terms, I was saying before that circular economy requires for businesses to make money in a different way and for citizens to spend it in a different way, right? But when you are confronting a change like that, you will have to confront it with those that are already in the market. And people think that the difficult thing is to find a good idea and scale it up. But I would say that the difficult thing to do is to stop doing what you are used to do, right? And that's a bit what Almut was explaining, right? And I think the issue of prices is a critical one. Circular economy is a more interdependent economy, which also brings back to Europe certain parts of the production chain. And still, labor costs are very different at global scale.
Yeah.
And this brings quite a difficulty to make some business models that are more circular thriving in Europe's economy.
For instance, I mean, there is public demand for recycling goods like cardboard. We see the labels on the products, on the boxes that we buy, or recycled paper and so forth. So there is a demand for that, even though the price might be a little higher in some cases.
Yes.
I
think the demand is there for sure. We have a lot of evidence, and we've seen many surveys where you see that people are willing to pay more for something that is more environmentally friendly, and particularly if it's circular. Recycling is something that people appreciate as a good thing, but it's the system that has to change. We cannot really give the responsibility to every one of us. We do have a responsibility, but the system has to make it possible.
Yeah.
Just one example, electronic device you can buy online at a very low price, but if you want to get it repaired, then the costs are usually so high that people don't do it because it's not economic. And so, for example, the eco-design rules, they should have an impact on like making repair easier and design it in a way that you can shift the battery easily instead of like very costly type of repair, which just is higher than the price for buying new. So I think these rules that we have here, they should help going in that direction. But of course, we are also exposed to an international market with like rather low labor costs in some countries from which we import, and rather high labor costs here, which we, for example, have to pay for repairs. So there is a systems change needed to overcome this kind of obstacles.
But can Europe still go ahead with its circular economy ambitions, citing these international?
For sure, and I think it's in our interest. It's a competitiveness issue, actually. And she was talking about the labor costs. They should stay high because we have a model where we share the wealth across the citizens in Europe in a quite efficient way if you look at other parts of the world. And circular economy can also be a source of good jobs and high-quality products. We want to have better experiences with the things we buy and use, right? So I think it's for sure an added value for all of us.
Mm-hmm. So now we can talk a bit more about prospects and how we're doing on circularity and waste reduction. Before we get into what the EU is doing, spurring action, perhaps we could go over a bit what we mean by reuse and recycling. I mean, there is a difference between recycling and quality recycling. For instance, who wants to address that one?
Yeah, I can start with that. First of all, the difference between reuse and recycling, it's often mixed up.
Yeah.
Reuse is normally if you have a product and you maybe repair it a little bit or you refresh it a little bit and then you use it as the same product again. Recycling means that you take the material, you maybe dismantle the product and you use again the material after a recycling process. So that's two different things, two different concepts. If we talk about recycling, then you need several steps. You need to collect it in a good way so it can be recycled. It's not too much contaminated, for example. And then you need to reprocess it so that you get, for example, if we take paper, that you get the paper fibers back and can create new products out of that. And the quality has a very important role here because if, for example, the material is too much contaminated or it is mixed up with other things that you cannot take apart again, then you can only make lower quality products out of it. And maybe not the same type of product that it was made from in the first place. And then you would need additional virgin materials to fill that gap. So this recycling concept or the quality of recycling is very important. but it's not so easy to define when it comes to applying it in practical terms.
Certainly.
Yeah, and just to complement what Almut is saying, we've been around for a little while on this business, and we've seen the numbers evolve over time. And I have the impression that Europe has been really good in making progress in terms of quantity. We recycle more than we used to do. But now I think the focus should be not only about these volumes increasing, which we still can do that. We are at 45% recycling rate, more or less. We can go higher. But to ensure that these materials are actually used once they are recycled and they are used for something good. That's the high quality bit, because the prevailing situation is that materials, once they get recycled, they are used for an application that has lower economic value than the first time. Right? So that's the move that we want. More quantities, yes, but higher quality. That's the priority for the next years.
Mm-hmm.
Another challenge is that we have statistics and we have data on how much waste is recycled, but we know very little about, after the recycling, where does it go? In which type of products does it end up? And also we have nearly no information about the quality of the materials. It's only the whole data collection is based on quantity and not on quality.
And will we get more data on that in the coming years? Or?
At the moment, there's no plans to improve the data.
Mm. And perhaps more people would want to know what materials are the most successful at being recycling right now in Europe?
I think that there are materials that are also easier from a technical perspective. They have higher value. Like
one would
metals.
assume plastic bottles.
Plastics are such a different or wide family of things, let's say. But metals, as I was saying, we have high recycling rates. They are easy to recycle. They have a high value. And then they have a market to be used after that when they are recycled. Plastics, some of them, they also meet these criteria. So PET from bottles is traditionally an example. But still, these type of materials are now in an ongoing crisis when it comes to recycling, because there is competition from recycled material from elsewhere in the planet, or even materials that claim to be recycling, but they actually don't come from recycling, or we have the suspicion that they don't. And I think that's where the single market of the European Union can really help. If these recycling markets are not local, regional, or in just one country, and they become European, we can really have the economy of the scale, the demand, and the price that is needed for these materials to really be used in a second, third, fourth life.
Mm-hmm. So we've done also some work here on textiles, for instance, which might be hard to recycle, but certainly easier to reuse. And for instance, I mean, it's becoming much more important for younger people to go to reuse clothing, for instance, or shoes.
Mm-hmm. For textiles, indeed, we see a different picture than for many other products. And the reuse market, so like using again what has been used before, it is a market. And recycling does not really work yet in the area of textiles, also because the way the textiles are designed, they are very, very difficult to recycle. The reuse market is, however, recently challenged by the decreasing quality of the textiles that are put on the market, especially with the fast fashion, ultra fast fashion model that is increasing worldwide and in Europe. The reuse is often not happening anymore because the low quality.
So what's the EU doing to spur action more on the circular economy, and especially on meeting its own
the
targets?
EU has done quite a lot over the years. I was saying before that we made a lot of progress, and I think the EU is clearly a driving force of that progress. Now we have quite a lot of legislation that was adopted recently or amended recently that will make further change. We spoke about the product policy, this eco-design regulation that we were mentioning. Another is this idea of adopting a Circular Economy Act that will also look into the recycling markets and how they can be made European and even international. I think that holds a lot of promise for the future, because it can really create an industrial ecosystem for high-quality recycling that we said that is so important.
Okay. So this is part of the show where I ask our guests a bit about what drives them, what got them into this line of work on environment and climate issues. Almut, do you want to start?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in the 1980s and 90s when environment was a big concern for many people, including for me. And I already started working on circular economy when I studied. And, well, it was not called like that back then. Mm-hmm. The wording changed, but I think it is really an important topic, and it's one of the solutions we have to ease the pressures on the environment.
And it's very similar for me. My parents like nature a lot, and we were always out there in nature, enjoying what it gives us. And then the second thing is Europe. I really like the concept of a European Union, of collaboration across different cultures, and I think it's a privilege to work for the environment in that context of a European project.
Great, thank you. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. For more information on Europe's Environment 2025 report, or on the work we do here at the European Environment Agency, you can see it at eea.europa.eu. Thank you, and see you next time.